Okay, hello, and welcome to my reading. My name is Jordan Kurella. I am a Columbus, Ohio author of mostly weird and dark fiction. I have some stuff in Apex, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Strange Horizons, and I have a piece coming out in Glitter and Ashes, A Queer World That Wouldn't Die, Tales of Queer World That Wouldn't Die, edited by Dave Ring, out from Me and Hemlock. I want to thank Hefita Sophia and everybody putting NASFiC together because this has been a lot of fun this weekend. It's been lovely talking to you on the panels, and I'm super excited to do this reading. Coming out, the anthology is coming out next month. The story I'm going to be reading is called The Black Hearts of La Playa. Is post-apocalyptic queer people and vampires, because, why not? Anyway, so I think the links are in the chat. I don't know. I can't look at Discord and do a reading at the same time. So let's just start with the reading. The Black Hearts of La Playa by me, Jordan Kurella. You can't see it because the background, so I'm just going to start. There's no such thing as monsters, not really, Letty said to me once, pretending to shoot another starving lizard with finger guns. I bet everyone's got a little monstrousness inside them. I watched her holster and pull finger guns as we sat on a pillaged picnic table, swatting locusts and sipping water. It was no secret I was in love with her. Me, Marin version 3.0. I've been one version for my mother, another for Corporal, and now I was this version for Letty, the girl who liked to go shooting and give the wrong plots of old books as if she'd read them dozens of times, when in fact she hadn't read them at all. Yeah? I asked her. What's your monster? She turned to me, hands on her knees, shoulders all serious. No, Marin, Letty said. I want to know about yours. Desert's got a vampire problem, Corporal said at a briefing mailer that night. Letty, Marin, you're on East Watch Tower detail. Nights. Don't get too distracted with. She smiled because she knew. She'd seen me sneaking out of Letty's tent before, tying on my belt, fixing my hair. Corporal smiled then too, and lifted her chin, fixing her own hair, like she did back when she and I were a thing. The other tower details got dealt out as Letty shot me a long glance across the mess tent, where we were shielded against the locusts that swarmed the lights. Like everyone said, the insects would survive the apocalypse. Everyone was at least right about that. What they weren't right about was most of the rest. Once Corporal was finished and the socializing started, I stepped out and down the ramp, down to the asphalt. Camp was set up in what had once been a parking lot. The abandoned vehicles cleared out and scrapped decades ago for space and materials. There was a big building behind us that we used once, but we don't go in there no more, Corporal said to me a while back. Roof keeps caving in on us. Don't got the means to fix it. She knew me then. She knew me then like she knew me now, knew I would come out here alone because I heard the wheels of her chair hit the ramp and hit the asphalt behind me. Turned to find her looking up at me with that steel gaze that had fixed me to her long ago. Letty was still inside. She was a social animal. Corporal and I weren't. We never had been. We traveled solitary or in pairs. This remained, even when I was with Letty, or not with her. Corporal was betting on this when she reached up and took my hand in a friendly, platonic gesture, her blue eyes piercing through the haze of her safety goggles, her smile visible despite the scarf over her face. Still gone was all the heat and immediacy of her movements. That desire that had pulled me to her made me tell her the lies that I wanted her to believe about me, that I wanted anybody to believe. Careful with that one, Marin, Corporal said. Don't want you to go breaking her heart. She's a lot more fragile than me. Corporal ran her thumb across the back of my hand and took off, glancing once behind her as she went. The memory of her kisses were hot on my lips, hard and fast, like she meant them, as much as she meant everything. Letty's kisses were tentative, but her grip was sure. She always took me to her like I was the last kiss left in the world. Me, I was desert silt, wispy and forming against either of them in a way that suited them, until they brushed me off, and they both brushed me off. Corporal once, Letty more times than that. But like silt, I kept coming back. Sun never rose anymore. In books it did, in stories it did, but not here. All the sun could manage to do now was edge over the horizon and light up this gray haze enough to get everyone coughing. I was already on lookout at East Watch Tower when the elevator shuddered behind me, its shrieking doors opened to reveal Letty, all 5'4" of her, dressed like me in dark clothing, both of us with our bandoliers of wooden stakes and gun belts built for 2 6-shooter revolvers. We wore scarves over our nose and mouth. Mine was a dull gray, colored that way from lackadaisical washing habits. Letty's was black on black, like the rest of her clothes, like her hair, like 2 of her teeth. I hate that thing, Letty said, motioning not to me, but to the giant gasoline beacon lighting up both our faces. Same, I said. Makes me smell like diesel for a decade. She grinned at me, boots hitting the corrugated metal platform like her hyperbole. Letty was small, but she took up as much space as an argument. I had a weakness for women that overwhelmed me like this. She grabbed my opera binoculars and looked up at me. Her face lit up from the beacon firelight. Her face took off on a softer quality this way, softer when in the mess hall, in the haze of the day, under the fluorescent lantern of her tent. But Letty wasn't soft. There was nothing soft about her, from the calluses on the tips of her fingers down to the steel toes of her boots. She was all hard edges. We were all hard edges anymore. Vampire problem, I said. What else is new? It's Tuesday, Letty said. It's true, but all the days ran together now. Every day was Tuesday anymore. Vampires struck in the late hours of the night, or the early hours of the morning, depending on one's point of view. My heart always struck at the same hours, reminding me of what I'd lost, what I'd given up, just to come here, just to be a part of this camp. Letty had thrown me out of her tent 3 times. 3 times after 3 whispers of, I love you, Marin. 3 displays of vulnerability, a rawness so real she couldn't let me have it, hold it, or believe it. My belt struck my thighs with the same rawness, the same vulnerability when she threw it at me. Get out, she also whispered to me 3 times. My mother used to whisper poetry to me, her own dangerous words of the sea, as I was named after people lost at it, wandering at it, the same way my mother wandered through her life, the same way I wandered through mine. We often become our mothers, so the legend said. Marin, my mother said often so much, listen, stop squirming. And she would go on about her black and broken heart at the bottom of the ocean, childless and free and dead. It was too much for a child to bear, but I carried that heart in my pocket until she left me on the cracked and sundered sidewalk, left me to find my own way in this chaos. A vampire knew its own way, so the story said. They knew their codes and their ways of being. They stayed to their communities and tied to a morality so strict in antiquity, there was no other way to be. It was almost romantic, if one still believed in romance. I didn't. The world was too dead for a romance now. Still yet, sometimes, late at night, I'd wander the desert beyond the shoddy camp walls, out of reach of the beacon lights. I'd wander with my bandolier, my revolvers, a safety net. But what I was looking for was anything but safe. I was looking for a way out, like my mother did all those years ago. I was looking for a vampire. Letty kept the binoculars up, old heavy ones that showed off the thin musculature of her forearms. I leaned over the edge of East Watch Tower, peering up to the edges where the beacon fire didn't reach. I was looking for a whisper of movement, a promise of action, but my own vision was clouded by the locusts and the scratches on my safety goggles. My corporal's orders, everyone wore these. Too many bugs. Mine had so many scratches that they hid my expressions. With the scarf and my scratch safety goggles, Letty said they hid the truth of me. That the ugly parts that I didn't want anyone to see only came out in the harsh fluorescent light of her tent, which is probably why she cast me out after whispering in my ear. She never liked what she saw. Letty brought down her binoculars and brought up her own safety goggles. They hid the mask of her, made her dark eyes look softer, more innocent, which was the truth. Her vulnerability, her quiet tenderness was what she wanted to hide from the world, magnified by the scratches and blur of the safety goggles, now blinking back at me. Got one, she said. There. She passed over the binoculars and I took a look. Out in the darkness of the desert was a tall, lanky individual who looked too out of place for the desert. No scarf, no goggles, sitting comfortably on an old vehicle uniframe and scuffed up boots and a long hoodie. So holy, it should take up religion. They were smoking a cigarette and looked like the sun hadn't touched them in years. Totally a vampire. We should call him back up, I said. No need, Letty said. We got this. She already turned to call the elevator. Its bowels shook and rattled in its ascent, answering my own fear. The desert wasn't the only one with a vampire problem. Letty herself had one, or more of an obsession. She had the highest vampire kill count of anyone in Corporal's camp. I had never killed a vampire, and Letty knew it. There might be more, Letty. There might be more. Letty, she mocked back at me. Then bring them on, Marion. We can take them. She fingered a wooden stake at my bound chest. We can take them together, you and me. And just like that, my heart skipped into my throat and I entered the elevator with her, our faces plunging into the orange safety lights together. And that's all I have, because the rest is available next month from Glitter and Ashes, Neon Hemlock, and all that kind of stuff. And you can find them, available pre-order in the links and Reading Even on Discord. And I'm going to stop reading because I'm going to start coughing. So thanks for coming. I can,